Once considered a relic of the Soviet era, Russia's Ilyushin IL-96 is making a surprise comeback, and it's shaking up the aviation world, challenging Airbus and Boeing. The return of this machine represents more than just a resurgence of the aviation industry. It's a declaration of independence and an instrument of geopolitical power. So why is Russia betting so heavily on a design from the past? And how can this aging giant redefine the future of long-haul aviation? Let's take a closer look. The Ilyushin IL-96 was born not just as an airplane, but as a dream. The Soviet dream of conquering the skies in its own way. In the late 1980s, as the Cold War entered its final stages, Moscow dared to imagine an aircraft that could rival the mighty Boeing 747 and Airbus A340. The result was the IL-96, a sleek, wide-body behemoth built with ambition and defiance. It featured larger, aerodynamically efficient wings with winglet, a digital glass cockpit, a fly-by-wire flight control system, and for high-bypass Aviad Vigatel PS90 turbine engines, offering significant improvements in fuel efficiency, range, and environmental performance. But as the plane prepared to take off, the empire that birthed it began to crumble. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 shattered the foundations on which dreams rested. Factories shut down, funding evaporated, and entire supply chains vanished overnight. The IL-96, once supposed to carry Soviet pride across continents, now found itself caught between two worlds. Too late for the Soviet past, too obsolete for a Western-dominated future. But the IL-96 never died. It adapted, quietly, taking on new roles as a carrier for Russian presidents, diplomats, and cosmonauts, its white fuselage gleaming with the weight of its symbolism. While airlines around the world embrace the efficiency of twin-engine jets like the TRIP-7 and a 330, Russia's foreign legacy still flies high as a reminder. Independence can be costly, but dependence is even more so. Then came 2022, the year that would redefine Russian aviation. Western sanctions grounded fleets, cut off access to parts, and threatened to clip the nation's wings altogether. But in that moment of crisis, the proud aircraft rose again. Reborn as the IL-9640M, upgraded with domestic engines, modern avionics, and a new purpose. It was no longer just an aircraft, but a statement etched in titanium and determined proof that Russia would fly its own way. From the ashes of a fallen superpower to the chaos of modern geopolitics, the IL-96's story is a living testament to the idea that even as history changes beneath its wings, a dream built to soar never truly collapses. So, how is the upgraded version IL-9640M reborn? Like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next exciting take on the hottest comebacks and innovations in aviation around the world. The IL-9640M is the modern embodiment of Russia's enduring aerospace ambitions, a fresh evolution of the original IL-96, connecting Soviet heritage with 21st century innovation. The elongated fuselage, at nearly 64 meters long, is around 9 meters longer than the IL-9630, allowing the aircraft to carry up to 370 passengers in a variety of cabin layouts from economy to multi-class premium seating. Inside, the spacious and thoughtfully designed cabin, measuring 2.8686 meters high and 5.7 meters wide, offers passengers greater comfort through upgraded amenities such as an advanced in-flight entertainment system, high-speed internet, and satellite communications. But the aircraft is much more than just a stretched version of its predecessor. At its core, the jet is powered by 4 Aviad Vigatel PS9A1 turbine engines, each producing approximately 38,000 pounds of thrust. These engines represent a significant improvement in performance, reliability, and emissions over previous Soviet designs. Combined with aerodynamic improvements, including a 60-meter wingspan with distinctive swept winglets, the aircraft achieves a range of up to 10,000 kilometers, allowing for sustained intercontinental operations. In addition, a change in modern avionics integrates digital flight management, satellite positioning, inertial navigation, and advanced collision avoidance systems, ensuring compliance with global aviation standards and allowing safe operations even in complex or remote airspace. While most of the world has moved to twin-engine performance, The IL-9640OM's four-engine configuration offers an extra layer of redundancy and safety, a distinct advantage on routes over polar regions, oceans, or undeveloped routes where diversion airports are scarce. In addition to its technical capabilities, the upgraded version has a deeply symbolic meaning, built largely from domestic components. It reflects Russia's efforts to ensure self-sufficiency in aviation under international sanctions. It can even be adapted for both civilian and military purposes, from passenger transport to airborne command. The aircraft represents not only technical progress, but also geopolitical resilience. With the IL-9640OM, Russia has created more than just a jet. They have built a statement of independence, a combination of performance, pride, and durability in the modern sky. Boeing and Airbus have long dominated the global aviation industry thanks to cutting-edge innovation, efficiency, and vast international supply chains that span continents. And their success has also become their biggest weakness. In 2025, both manufacturers are struggling with supply chain disruptions due to strikes, regulatory hurdles, geopolitical tensions, and global shipping challenges. Airbus, for example, faces a severe engine shortage that has led to a backlog of unfinished aircraft and delivery delays, while Boeing faces repair costs and supplier delays that impact production and margins. These disruptions show how deeply Boeing and Airbus are embedded in globalization, making them vulnerable to external shocks that ripple through multiple supply chains, from avionics to engine components. But the new Russian jet also represents a radically different philosophy from Boeing and Airbus, prioritizing strategic independence and resilience over pure efficiency and scale. Unlike Western giants that rely on vast and fragile global supply chains, the aircraft is manufactured almost entirely in Russia, from the PS9A1 engine to the avionics and airframe, which helps Russia avoid the sanctions, trade disruptions, and export controls that often Western manufacturers, while it cannot match the fuel efficiency, advanced materials, and noise reduction capabilities of the A350 or Boeing 77X. It offers practical value through autonomy, allowing Russia to maintain long-range connectivity essential to its vast territory and geopolitical influence. In terms of cost, the IL-9640OM is estimated to cost less than $100 million per aircraft, significantly cheaper than Western aircraft. Avoiding the escalating development and production costs faced by Boeing and Airbus, however, Russia faces challenges in restarting mass production with limited domestic industrial capacity, the need to train pilots for older designs, and competition for scarce engine production resources between the civilian and military sectors. Russian domestic engines, while sovereign, are less efficient and have a longer lifespan than Western variants, and cost more. However, the IL-9640OM's opportunity lies not only in its market competitiveness, but also in what it represents: a platform for self-reliance, innovation, and strategic resilience. While it may never dominate international skies, it gives Russia the tools, experience, and confidence to rebuild its aviation industry on its own terms and at its own pace. Do you think Boeing and Airbus are too dependent on global supply chains? Can self-reliance trump efficiency in the aviation industry? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. With its modernized systems, upgraded cockpit, and improved passenger comfort, the jet still faces a key question. What really drove its rebirth? The answer lies not in the airframe, but in its heart, a name that has quickly become synonymous with Russia's greatest aerospace ambitions, the PD-35. It is the most powerful jet engine Russia has ever developed. A fifth-generation high-bypass turbine with a rotor diameter of about 3.1 meters and a thrust of about 34 tons, it is also an improved version of the proven efficient PD-14 engine used for the Irkut MiG-21 building on that foundation. The PD-35 aims to deliver world-class performance, reduced emissions, and increased durability, positioning it to compete head-to-head with industry giants like GE's Stream-9X and Rolls-Royce's Trent XWB. Moreover, the engine is not just an upgrade, but also the golden key to the development of the IL-9640OM4. By replacing the four current PS9A1 engines with two PD-35s, Russia could usher in a new era for its wide-body aircraft program: lower fuel consumption, reduced maintenance, and a truly competitive twin-engine configuration with modern Western airliners. In addition, the combination of composite fan blades, advanced heat-resistant alloys, and quieter operation means the jet engine not only improves performance, but also meets the increasingly stringent environmental and noise regulations shaping the global aviation industry. Strategically, the program is less about market share and more about self-sufficiency. Russian leaders and state corporations have clearly tied engine development to national resilience and long-term military sustainability, with government funding and political backing driving the development of the PD-35. However, key constraints remain, including limited mass production capacity, competitive engine priorities in military programs, global operational certification hurdles. A four-engine wide-body showing up in 2025 sounds like a glitch in the matrix. The entire industry spent the last 2 decades chasing twin-engine efficiency like it was the only religion that mattered. And yet, Russia is dusting off the IL-96 on aircraft many people had already filed away as a museum piece and talking about it like it's a strategic weapon. So what's going on here? Why revive a design that looks like it belongs to another era? And how did an aging airliner suddenly become a headline again? Because the Il-96 was never just an airplane. It was a statement, a flying message that said, we can do this ourselves. And in the world Russia woke up to after 2022, that message stopped being nostalgia and started looking like a survival plan. Reuters +1 The Il-96 came out of a time when prestige mattered as much as profit. The Soviet Union wanted a long-haul aircraft it could point to with pride, something that could cross oceans and prove it didn't need Western manufacturers to connect its cities to the world. That mindset doesn't vanish overnight. Even after the Soviet collapse, the Il-96 didn't fully disappear. It simply changed careers, sliding into roles where symbolism and state needs mattered more than airline economics. And that's why, even today, you'll still find Il-96 aircraft tied to government and special missions because it's one of the few wide-bodies Russia can keep in its own orbit. Wikipedia +1 But here's the thing most people miss. The Il-96's comeback didn't start with a runway. It started with a shockwave. In 2022, the rules changed. Suddenly, maintaining a fleet of mostly Airbus and Boeing jets became a high-stress game of logistics, paperwork, and scarcity. Multiple reports described the problem in blunt terms. Parts and support that used to flow normally were cut off, and airlines began leaning on workarounds, sometimes even stripping aircraft to keep other aircraft flying. That's not a futuristic aviation strategy. That's emergency medicine for an airline industry. Reuters +1 And once a country finds itself in that kind of corner, the definition of a good airplane changes. Efficiency is still nice. Comfort is still nice. But the first question becomes, can you keep it flying without asking your biggest rivals for permission? That's where the Il-96 re-enters the story, like an old character, walking back into a movie when you thought the credits already rolled, not because it's the most advanced wide-body on Earth, but because it's a platform Russia can still build around, service around, and control politically. And when the world squeezes your supply lines, control becomes priceless. Now, this is the point where a lot of videos try to hype the Il-96 as a Boeing and Airbus killer. That's the clickbait version. The real version is more interesting and, honestly, more intense because it's messier. The upgraded version people talk about most is the IL-96-400M, a stretched and modernized take on the Il-96 family. And yes, it's not just talk. Reporting noted the prototypes first. Flight in November 2023, that single detail matters because it shows Russia is still willing to spend political and industrial capital to move the type forward, at least as a program. Air Insight +1. But what makes the 400M modern isn't some magic that suddenly turns it into an A350. It's modernization in a very specific direction. Updated systems, updated production methods where possible, and most importantly, an aircraft that can be built with a higher share of domestic inputs when Russia is under pressure. That's the point. Not to be the most efficient jet on the planet, but to be the jet you can still build when the planet doesn't. Want to sell you one? And the engines are a perfect example of this philosophy. The Il-96-400M is generally discussed with PS-90A1 class engine. Russian high-bypass turbofan family that's been around for years. One Flight Global report from the engine's development history describes the PS90A1 as being rated around 38,500 pounds, thrust 171 kilonewtons for the stretched Ilyushin application. That's not a headline-grabbing next-gen engine, but it's something Russia knows how to produce and support domestically. Flight Global, so the planes come back, is really a trade. Give up some of the extreme fuel burn advantages of modern Western twins, and you gain something else: strategic predictability. And if you're enjoying this kind of aviation story, the kind that's not just specs, but motives, this is exactly where you'd want viewers to hit like and subscribe. Because the next part is where the comeback turns into a bigger gamble. Because the IL-96 400M isn't fighting its biggest battle in the sky, it's fighting it on the factory floor. A prototype flight is one thing. A sustainable production line is another. And recent reporting has been brutally clear about how hard serial production becomes when a country is trying to rebuild complex civil aircraft supply chains under sanctions. Reuters described wider struggles in Russia's commercial aviation industry, delays, constraints, and missed delivery targets across multiple programs, painting a picture where ambition keeps colliding with manufacturing reality. Reuters, and that matters because wide bodies are unforgiving. They demand high-quality materials, reliable engines, certified systems, trained crews, and stable supplier networks. If any link in that chain wobbles, the whole program pays for it. So when you hear IL-96 is back, the smart question isn't, can it fly? The smart question is, can Russia build enough of them consistently with the quality and support an airline needs? And this is where the story gets interesting, because even Russian officials and industry voices have sounded more cautious about what the IL-96 400M's role is likely to be. Some reporting has suggested the aircraft's near-term focus leans toward state needs and cargo or specialized missions, rather than a massive airline rollout that would suddenly fill airports with IL-96s. RU Aviation +1, that's not failure. It's strategy. If you can't build hundreds, you build what matters most: aircraft for VIP transport, government operations, and roles where the customer isn't a profit-driven airline but the state itself.